Please be seated. No one's complaining about air conditioning today, are you? I apologize. Why wouldn't the air conditioning go out on a Sunday morning? Why wouldn't it go out Monday or Tuesday? Of course it has to be Sunday. Well, that might be a little too loud. There you go. Can you guys hear me over the fans? Okay. Sorry. Listen, just a praise report this morning. Nathan, whom we were praying for, had the procedure. Nathan is doing very well. The procedure went very well, and he is home, and everything went great. So thank you for your prayers. Please join us on Sunday mornings. We meet in here in the sanctuary in prayer at 9:30. And we have a nice little group, but we'd like that to expand. I think the one thing we need most today is prayer. And it's the thing that we do the least. It is the thing that we as Christians and as a church are the weakest at. So if you can join us for corporate prayer on Sunday mornings at 9:30, it would be a blessing. This morning, we have what we're calling an Operation Overwatch update. If anyone knows, is in the military, knows what Overwatch is. It's when they set a guy up high, whether it's on a ridge or on a building, to overwatch as they're going through and performing the mission that they've been assigned. And so he keeps watch over them. And that's what this is intended to do, to keep watch over world events and to let you know so that you could be prepared as to what may be coming. If you are outside in the cafe this morning, I'm going to ask you to come inside because we're not turning the TVs on out there just to try and get a little more air. For those of you who are on Facebook with us this morning and live streaming, there will come a point where we are going to cut that off this morning due to the sensitivity of our message today. That will not be broadcast live. This portion, however, of the service this morning will be live on Facebook, and then we will be going dark, if you will. So, the title of this update is The Great Reset. How many have heard that term recently? It is not just conspiracy theorists, okay? You can go on the World Economic Forum website and read all about it. It's not being hidden. It's right out in the open. They're telling you everything you want to know right there. So, if you believe what the world has gone through over the last 18 months was planned, then you are my audience. Know this was planned because there's an ultimate goal here. The ultimate goal is to seek a global economy, a global governance, and a global leader, one world leader. That is the goal. And we know from the Bible that that's nothing new for us, is it? We've known that was the goal all along. That's been God's goal all along, to have that set up for the return of his son. These things must happen for Jesus to return to rule and reign. So it should come as no shock to us when we see them beginning to happen. Now, you have no doubt heard the phrase, the new normal. How could you not have heard that? It was played over and over and over and over again, ad nauseum, every time you went to the store. As you social distance, as you donned your mask, you heard those words, the new normal. The globalists do not want things to go back to the status quo. They do not want things to go back to normal. And let me tell you that things will never go back to normal, okay? The status quo for them was racism, economic imbalance, both individually and as nations. And most importantly, the status quo for them was a lack of concern or an ignorance about climate change. Listen, I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to put it out there because you know I don't mess around with words. If you believe in global warming, then you believe that the virus accidentally escaped the Chinese lab. Okay? Just saying. Listen, I've seen summers so cool that the kids couldn't go swimming. I've seen winters so warm that you didn't need a winter coat. I've seen summers so hot that you didn't want to leave the house, and winters so cold and snowy that you got sick of shoveling. So temperatures have fluctuated from normal to extreme since I was just a little kid. And that was many, 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 many moons ago. Listen, the temperature is what it is. And if it's changing, that's God's plan. That's God's design. And no matter how hard man tries to change that, it's not going to change. But they are going to try. So globalists are seeking what they're calling a great reset, a new normal, if you will, where the world, not individual nations, will address all these situations that we just spoke of, but more importantly, climate control, climate change. Now, if you follow NASA, how many here follow NASA religiously? No, you aren't. Let's talk after service. They report that because of the rise of carbon emissions, global temperatures have risen 2.1% since when? 1880. Nice, so you got the PowerPoint. Arctic ice is decreasing 13.1% per decade, and the sea level is rising 3.3% per year. How much does that mean to anyone in this room this morning? But some of these statistics may be alarming to those who see this earth as their home, who want to make this place a better place to live, who are seeking a utopia, a earthly paradise. And that's really what they want, an earthly paradise. Heaven is our home. Heaven is where our paradise is. However, we are called to be good stewards of what God has blessed us with, right? But it's not up to us to change the temperature of the earth. We do have control over changing the temperature in this room, however, and that I promise you will happen. Listen, globalists are concerned with our carbon footprint. And they've even made the comment during the lockdown that carbon emissions decreased by 13%, mainly because we drove less, okay? The canals in Venice were the cleanest they've been in decades. They want to go back to that. They want to make that the new normal, okay? I have to tell you, though, fewer cars on the road, less pollution, I'm okay with that. I really am. For me personally, I wouldn't mind going back to the days of horse and buggies. It was just simpler. It's a lot cheaper to feed a horse hay than it is to put gas in your tank, I can tell you that. And I have to admit to you, some of what they are addressing would help reduce our footprint in this nation. It would help us be better stewards of what God has blessed us with. But that's not their goal. Their goal, the end for the globalist, is a one-world government, a one-world leader, and a one-world economy. And when you consider that there is a much more sinister underpinning to this, it's going to make your skin crawl. I'm going to read you something from the United Nations a website that calls themselves Population Matters posted. The United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals imply that there is no longer any need to reduce global population growth. Even though it's a serious problem that undermines most of the SDG targets, by adding a further SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, aimed at slowing the increase in population, the world could yet save the UN's 2030 agenda. By the way, that date 2030 is something you're going to hear a lot about because it is the rollout date for the Great Reset. Now, there's two things you need to take note of what I just read. Very disconcerting, aren't they? How do you reduce the population of the world? I'm just going to let that float there and you figure it out in your own minds. And now the goal is to slow it down. So again, I ask you, how do you slow down the population growth of the world? Interesting. Wonder what they have planned. In simple terms, those who want to set the world straight, those who want a great reset, think there's too many of us in the world. Interesting, isn't it? What does all this mean for the United States of America, since that's the nation we live in? Well, listen, nationalism does not work for the globalist. Now, there are some terms that you are going to hear frequently, and I've included them in your notes that you get. And by the way, if you do not get the notes, see me after service, give me your email address, and I'd be happy to send you the notes to the message. But you're going to hear terms like nationalism. Nationalism is, in the textbook definition, devotion to the interest of culture of a particular nation state. It is the belief that nations will benefit from acting independently rather than collectively, emphasizing national rather than international goals. In other words, it's a nation that puts the people first and the needs of the people above other nations. That is why our 45th president, and I'm speaking like this because I do not want this taken down, but our 45th president was hated by the globalists because he believed that we should help other nations where we could, but we should take care of our own people first and foremost. You cannot have a nationalist point of view and fit into a global world system, okay? So that means something drastic has to happen here in this nation for that to happen. And as you're going to see, to become a part of the global community, we're going to have to give up some of our freedoms. And that's not going to go over well with the majority of the people in this country. Just saying. Now, I have heard prominent newscasters, Katie Couric being one of them, not that I listen to Katie Couric, I just saw a soundbite, and I heard her say, now that Trump is gone, how do we deprogram 75 million Trump supporters? I don't know, Katie. How do you deprogram them? You have to understand that our 45th president, the patriots in this country, the Christians in this country are standing in the way of the globalist agenda. Do you know that 80% of evangelical Christians have refused to get the vaccine? And in that group, they've included patriots and conservatives, but mostly Christian evangelists have refused to get the vaccine. That makes us a problem for them, doesn't it? Just saying. You're going to hear more about this as time goes on. There is a reason why the United States of America is not prominently mentioned in Bible prophecy. Could this be the catalyst to that? I don't know, but it very well may be. Now, central to globalism is the concept of global rule of law, meaning that nation states, a nation like the United States of America, would cede their judicial authority to a supranational court, which basically means that these courts have power and influence that transcends national boundaries and governments. In other words, the United States Supreme Court may not be the highest court in the land at some point. One example of a supranational court is the WHO, the World Health Organization. They have the authority that transcends national boundaries and interests. Listen, we saw that with this virus, didn't we? They dictated what we were going to do in this country and around the world. We're beginning to see this even on a local level. Courts are overriding individual rights and freedoms for the greater good of our country. This country used to be a country of freedom of choice, and we're quickly becoming a country of the courts and authorities will make the choice for you. Another term you're going to hear more frequently is Universal Basic Income, or UBI. Universal Basic Income is a proposed government-guaranteed payment system that each citizen will receive. You got a little taste of that with your stimulus checks. Did you like those stimulus checks? Well, there's more coming. You could thank the government. Listen, you know what that does? That makes you dependent on the government, doesn't it? And that's exactly what they want. They want you to be dependent on them. Listen, it's not only going to make you dependent, it's going to further destroy the economy and the businesses in this country and around the world. And the globalists need that to happen. Do you understand? They need that to happen. They need this economy, the economy, to collapse around the world in order for them to do what they need to do, to set in place what they need to set in place. And last but not least, a term you're going to hear even more frequently is the Great Reset. And you can read all about that, as I said, on their website, the World Economic Forum. One of the catchphrases to the Great Reset on their website is one world, one currency. The Great Reset is a brainchild of Professor Klaus Schwab, who is the founder, by the way, of the World Economic Forum. They hold a meeting once a year in January at a ski resort in Davos, Switzerland. It invite political guests. They invite people like Bono, and Prince Charles has gone to this. The heads of Coca-Cola, Goldman Sachs, IBM, prime ministers, presidents, they all attend this meeting. Now, reading excerpts from an article posted in The Hill on June 6, 2020, we're going to get some idea of what the Great Reset is all about. For decades, progressives have attempted to use climate change to justify liberal policy changes. But their latest attempt, a new proposal called the Great Reset, is the most ambitious and radical plan the world has seen in more than a generation. At a virtual meeting earlier in June hosted by the World Economic Forum, some of the planet's most powerful business leaders, government officials, and activists announced a proposal to reset the global economy. Instead of traditional capitalism, the high-profile group said the world should adopt more socialistic policies, such as wealth taxes, additional regulations, and massive Green New Deal-like government programs. So yes, cows are in danger. The World Economic Forum posted on our website, every country, from the United States to China, must participate. In every industry, from oil to gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism, wrote Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. Schwab also said that all aspects of our societies and economies must be revamped, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Now, joining them at this forum in January last year, they didn't have it this year yet, was Prince Charles, as I said, who's a big supporter of this, by the way. Gina Gopinath, who is the chief economist for the International Money Fund. Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary General of the United Nations. And as I said, a lot of CEOs, presidents of major international corporations attend this every year. Also, activists like Greenpeace attend this. And they're all big supporters of this Great Reset. Now, the details of this were supposed to come out in January 2021, but they have postponed it. They're looking to install policies that you've heard put forth by Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. All calling for socialist and progressive plans. One of the main themes of the June meeting that they held virtually was that the virus created an opportunity for many of the World Economic Forum members to enact their radical transformation of capitalism, which they acknowledged would not likely have been made possible without the virus. Still think it was an accident? Prince Charles said, "We have a golden opportunity to see something good from this crisis. Its unprecedented shockwaves may well make people more receptive to big visions of change." And he also said, "It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again." So listen, you may be wondering what their plan is going forward, because you can't, no matter how much you milk this thing, you're not going to stretch this out. People are getting tired of it already, right? So the answer to this, the next great crisis, many believe, will be climate change. Prince Charles, and I don't know, he is my go-to guy for information. The threat of climate change has been more gradual than the virus, but it's devastating reality for many people and their livelihoods around the world. And it's even greater potential to disrupt, surpass even that of the virus. By the way, when they canceled the World Economic Forum in January of 2021 in Switzerland, it was because of the virus. How ironic is that? The very crisis that they used to generate this Great Reset caused them to have to change their meeting to August in Singapore of this year, but it will happen. Once that happens, we'll get a few more details about what they're planning. But listen, we've been moving toward a one-world government, a one-world leader, and a one-world economy for a very, very long time. And the globalists needed a crisis, and this virus provided the crisis for them. They also needed to highlight the divide between the wealthy and the poor. According to Forbes magazine, Total American billionaire worth stands at $4.6 trillion as of the stock market close of April 28, 2021. That's up 35% from $3.4 trillion when the markets opened January 1st, 2020. And if you read between the lines, it means that during the virus, the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. So the world can clearly see now that there's a great divide, that we need to change this, that something has to be done in order for there to be an equal playing field, right? For everyone to be economically on the same level. There needs to be a change. There needs to be a new normal, and this is part of the goal. The goal has also been for a long time to destabilize the world economy so that the world would realize its need for a one world economy and a one world leader to bring us through it. In fact, this great reset and the social policies that it will bring have happened in well-organized, planned steps. This has been a multi-pronged attack. First came demoralization. The goal and purpose was to make a country immoral so that they can no longer recognize the truth or believe the truth when it's presented to them. Pornography, pedophilia, the sex trade, prostitution have all contributed to the weakening of the nations around the world. Second, destabilization. The goal here is to create conditions where the tipping point for degrading society occur. We saw that with Black Lives Matter, systemic racism, the critical race theory, climate control, social justice. All of those things have helped to destabilize nations around the world. And then thirdly, a crisis to take advantage of the destabilization and seize power. As one gentleman said, never let a crisis go to waste. So they've used this virus to destabilize the economies around the world. And what we're witnessing now is the final stages of this plan for this agenda to reset the government, not just a nation, but worldwide. Again, from the article posted on the Hill, the ushering in of a global governance is facilitated in and by these elements, by the demoralization, the destabilization, and the crisis. A destabilized society will seek security and relinquish rights, freedoms, and sovereignty in order to get it. When a new leader steps in and brings security with brutal force, it will initially be seen as strength until that same force is applied to totalitarian compliance on the masses. And we know that one world leader will be the Antichrist. So listen, I want to arm you with the facts so that you can be prepared. Now, I've said this many times from this pulpit, and I will continue to say it as long as the Lord gives me breath and as long as the Lord gives me this pulpit. I think sometimes we get so caught up in the fact that we're going to get raptured out of here that we don't think that we need to be prepared for what's coming. We need to be prepared for what's coming. We may not face the wrath of God in the tribulation, but there's nothing in the Bible that says that you will not face the wrath of man and Satan in this lifetime. And if you think that God's going to just zap us out of here and nobody's going to suffer, try that argument with the Christians in Pakistan. Try having that argument with the Christians in China. Wake up. Wake up, church. You know the whole thing, be woke? We don't need to be woke. We need to be awakened. We're asleep, and we've been asleep for a very, very, very long time. Uncomfortable in here this morning? It's going to get a lot more uncomfortable. You need to understand, this world wants a new normal, and they are going to pull out every stop needed to get there. So be prepared. There's nothing wrong with having non-perishable items in your home. There's nothing wrong with that, with having water stocked away. Do we live in a hurricane-prone area, or have we forgotten Sandy already? Be prepared. Be prepared. There may be another type of storm coming. One more topic I feel is important to share with you before we close. On Friday, October 18, 2019, in the Pierre Hotel in New York City, they held an event called 201. And this is from that website. You can still read this today. Event 201 was a 3.5-hour pandemic tabletop exercise that stimulated a series of dramatic, scenario-based facilitated discussions confronting difficult, true-to-life dilemmas associated with response to a hypothetical but scientifically plausible pandemic. The next severe pandemic will not only cause great illness and loss of life, but could also trigger major cascading economic and societal consequences that could contribute greatly to global impact and suffering. Just a few short months later, we began to hear of a virus raging through China, and it wasn't long after that that it reached our shores. Do you know what event the World Economic Forum is pushing? The same people that are pushing the Great Reset are planning for July of this year, just next month. It is called Cyber Polygon, and this is what their website says. As the global digitalization is further accelerating, the world is becoming ever more interconnected. Digital ecosystems are being created all around us. Countries, corporations, and individuals are taking advantage of the rapid spread of the internet and smart devices. In this context, a single vulnerable link is enough to bring down the entire system, just like the domino effect. A secure approach to digital development today will determine the future of humanity for decades to come. Could a massive cyber attack be the next crisis? 2021.
Slide says 2020. 8 July 2020. It should be 2020.
Yeah, it's okay. It's next month. It's 2021. Cyber Polygon is next month. So what does this all mean? It means that we're seeing the stage set for the Antichrist, is what it means. We're seeing this in our lifetime. We're seeing the shadows of what is to come. And if we're seeing the shadows now, how close is the real thing? This Great Reset is on schedule to be fully implemented by the year 2030. That's just, actually now it's 8.5 years away. Meaning that you're going to see these changes beginning to be put into effect now over the next 8.5 years. There is a storm coming. Are you ready? Are you ready? As I said, we're going to be cutting this live stream off here in a few minutes. But I just want to say that is a reminder to those who are still sitting home that you need to be here. You need to be here. Not home watching this on video. You need to be here. Because I will guarantee you this much. So the SEALs have a saying. It's a 3-foot control. You can control whatever's around you 3 feet. All right? So you can't control anything else. So the one thing we can control is what's before us right now. And if it comes the time when you get up in the morning and you do not have cell phone service, you don't have an internet, you don't have lights, you don't have water, you don't have anything, know that there will be someone here. Know that there will be a contingency plan to meet on Sundays, as we're going to meet as a board later this afternoon to discuss that very thing. We will continue to meet. And if you're not part of the body, and we do broadcast live because I have family members around the country who enjoy watching this, but if you're in this area and you're sitting home watching this, you should be here. Because when that happens and we initiate that contingency plan, you will not be part of that. And this is going to be a terrible time to go through this on your own. Now, I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. I am not saying that there is going to be a cyber attack in August. I am not saying that. What concerns me is that the same people who had this symposium just before the coronavirus is having another one just before a cyber attack. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying you need to be prepared for whatever happens. Listen, David went down to the stream and took out how many smooth stones? 5. Because he was a bad shot? No, because Goliath had 4 brothers. David trusted in God for the outcome, but he was prepared for whatever came his way. And like David, we need to be the same. We need to be prepared. Because there could come a time when there's no air conditioning. And we're going to hear from somebody this morning where air conditioning is a luxury. Doesn't very often happen, okay? You know, I was getting gas yesterday at Wawa and had Oliver in the car. And they had no gas because the computer system went down. Think about that for a minute. How many things in your life are run from online? Everything. Everything is. So I said to Ollie, he says, why don't they have gas, Pop? I said, because the pumps are down, the computers are down. He goes, did the batteries run out? The batteries may run out one day. The batteries may run out one day. Okay? Be prepared. All right, at this point, we're going to cut off Facebook, cut off our live stream and our recording.